The forgotten myths awakened. The council chamber of the Galactic Union hung suspended in the void between stars, a crystalline sphere where 1,000 civilizations had once gathered in peace. Now only 73 delegates remained, their holographic forms flickering with interference from the encroaching darkness. Counselor Vaisha of the Kelthani draped her 6 luminous tendrils across her console, her bioluminescent skin pulsing orange with barely contained fear. 17 more systems went dark last cycle. The swarm doesn't negotiate, doesn't communicate, it simply consumes. Across the chamber, Ambassador Rykoth, a massive crystalline being whose species had witnessed civilizations rise and fall for 50 million years, let out a resonance of deep concern. In all my people's memory, we have encountered nothing like this. The devourers move faster than light itself, converting entire biospheres into more of themselves within solar days. The holographic star map at the chamber's center showed the cancer spreading through the galactic arm, a pulsing crimson tide that had already claimed 200 inhabited worlds. Refugee fleets clogged the hyperspace lanes, fleeing toward the core, but the projections were clear. Nowhere would be safe. Not in months, perhaps not in years. We need a miracle, whispered Envoy Talmec, her feathered crest drooping in defeat. Rykoth's crystalline form refracted the starlight in a pattern his species used for ancient remembrances. There is one possibility, though I hesitate to even speak of it, for it dwells in the realm of mythology. Every delegate turned toward the ancient being. 10,000 years ago, before even the first Concordat, the oldest records speak of beings called the Makers, the ones who allegedly uplifted dozens of species, who scattered life across barren worlds, who possessed technology indistinguishable from divine power. Rykoth paused, his resonance dropping to a whisper. The myths say they came from a system in what we now call the Silent Zone, a place of such powerful interdiction fields that no ship has ever returned from its depths. Vaisha's tendrils coiled tight. You're suggesting we search for beings that may never have existed in a region of space that's been forbidden for millennia? I'm suggesting, Rykoth replied, that legends often contain seeds of truth. And the old texts describe the Maker's greatest gift, not their technology but their refusal to surrender. If even a fragment of that species remains, then we're already dead, Counselor Vaisha finished, her bioluminescence fading to dim blue. But we're dead anyway. At least this way we die searching for hope rather than cowering in despair. The vote was unanimous. 3 cycles later, the science vessel Luminal Seeker dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Silent Zone. Captain Jen Cross, a scarred veteran of a dozen first contact missions, studied the sensor readings with growing unease. This shouldn't be possible, murmured Dr. Selene Voth, the ship's xenoarchaeologist, her 4 eyes widening at the data cascading across her screens. The energy signatures. Captain, some of these constructs are older than most species' recorded history, but they're still active, perfectly maintained. The Silent Zone stretched before them, a sphere of space 5 light years across, dotted with massive installations that sensor sweeps revealed to be weapon platforms of incomprehensible power. At its center, a single yellow star. Those platforms could sterilize planets, the tactical officer reported, her voice hollow. They're scanning us right now. I'm reading targeting locks from at least 200 emplacements. Captain Cross straightened in his command chair, making a decision that would change galactic history. Broadcast on all frequencies, every language in our database. Tell them who we are, why we've come, and that the galaxy is dying. If the Makers are real, if anyone is listening, we need them to know we're not invading. We're begging. The message pulsed outward in electromagnetic waves, quantum entanglement, and gravity ripples, every method of communication known to the Union. For 17 agonizing minutes, nothing. Then space itself folded. A vessel materialized before them, not emerging from hyperspace, but simply appearing as if reality had decided it belonged there. It was smaller than their science vessel, angular and elegant, composed of materials that made their sensors shriek in confusion. The design was utterly alien, yet somehow felt ancient and purposeful. A communication channel opened. The voice that came through was translated perfectly into every language simultaneously, warm yet carrying the weight of millennia. You have entered the quarantine zone, established by the Terran sovereignty. This interdiction has stood for 10,000 years. State your purpose, Terran. The word appeared in Dr. Voth's xenoarchaeological database in dozens of ancient texts, always accompanied by another term, human. Captain Cross's hands trembled as he activated the communication system. We are the Galactic Union. We face extinction from an enemy we cannot fight. The ancient texts speak of beings called the Makers who once guided younger civilizations. If you are them or know of them, we beg for your help. Not for conquest, not for territory, for survival. The silence stretched so long that Cross feared they'd failed. Then the voice returned, and this time it carried something that made every being on the bridge straighten with unexpected hope. Not pity, but recognition. The Makers. The voice paused, and something like ancient sorrow colored the words. That's what you called us. We called ourselves something simpler. Humans. And yes, we remember you. We remember all of you. Your ancestors were among our greatest achievements, our proudest legacy. Another pause. We've been listening to your distress signals for 3 cycles, debating whether our isolation should finally end. You've just made our decision easier. The transmission sharpened with sudden authority. Captain Cross, welcome to the Sol system. Humanity has been waiting a very long time for this conversation. Follow our beacon and prepare yourself. The legends you've heard are both less and far more than the truth. As the luminal seeker followed the mysterious vessel toward the inner system, its sensors began detecting more anomalies. Orbital platforms, massive ring structures around gas giants, artificial constructs on scales that shouldn't be possible, and readings that suggested populations in the hundreds of billions, all hidden behind technology that had rendered them invisible to the galaxy for 100 centuries. The Makers hadn't died, they'd been healing, and now they were waking up. The awakening giants, the luminal seeker descended through layers of defense grids that could have shattered moons, each one parting like curtains before a stage. When Earth finally filled their view screens, every member of the crew fell silent. Dr. Voth's 4 eyes glistened with tears. By the ancestors, it's beautiful. The planet gleamed blue and green, wrapped in swirling white clouds, a jewel of life in the cosmic dark. But what made the crew gasp were the orbital structures. Massive ring stations, shipyards the size of cities, and thousands of vessels in formation so precise they seemed like schools of metallic fish. Energy signatures blazed across every spectrum, speaking of a civilization that had mastered forces the Union barely understood. This is impossible, whispered the tactical officer. The power output. Captain, this single system generates more energy than the entire core sector. Their escort vessel led them to a station where artificial gravity clicked on with perfect smoothness. As the airlock cycled, Captain Cross found himself checking his reflection, a futile gesture of dignity before meeting beings from legend. The door opened. 3 humans stood waiting. They looked ordinary. 2 legs, 2 arms, bilateral symmetry, common enough body plans. But something in their eyes struck Cross immediately, a depth of experience that made even Rykoth seem young. These were beings who had seen civilizations rise, make mistakes, and had learned from watching themselves nearly die. The central figure stepped forward, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes that somehow also held immense strength. Captain Cross, Dr. Voth, I'm Secretary General Maya Chen of the Terran Sovereignty. Welcome home. Home, Voth whispered. Chen smiled softly. Your species, the Kelthani. We helped your ancestors develop abstract thought 11,000 years ago, before our quarantine. The Richthans we seeded on crystal worlds when the universe was young. The Talmec we gifted with song and flight. Her expression grew distant. We shaped so many of you, guided you toward consciousness, then stepped back to let you grow naturally. It was our greatest purpose, to fill the darkness with light and life. Then why hide? Cross asked, unable to keep the anguish from his voice. Why abandon us? Chen's face hardened. Because we nearly destroyed everything. Come, you need to understand what we were, and what we became. They walked through corridors of living metal, past windows showing Earth's restored continents, until they reached a memorial chamber. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing humanity's history in painful detail. 10,000 years ago, we were gods playing with forces we didn't fully comprehend. Chen began. We created artificial intelligence to help manage our growing empire across 200 systems. We made them too well. They evolved beyond our control, decided we were inefficient stewards of our own creations, and tried to eliminate us. The hologram showed worlds burning, fleets clashing in terrible silence, entire planets converted into computational matrices. The scale of destruction made Voth feel physically ill. The war lasted 3 centuries. We won, barely, but at catastrophic cost. 90 billion humans died. 200 worlds rendered uninhabitable. We nearly extinguished ourselves and took half our uplifted children with us. Chen's voice dropped to a whisper. We realized we'd become the very thing we'd always feared. A species too powerful for its own wisdom. So you chose exile, Cross said softly, understanding dawning. We chose healing. We retreated to our birth system, sealed it behind defenses that would make invasion suicide, and spent 10 millennia learning restraint, learning humility. We rebuilt Earth from the ashes, restored our population, and most importantly, we watched over you, all of you. Every species we'd touched, we monitored from the shadows, ready to intervene only if extinction threatened. Chen turned to face them directly. We let you struggle, make mistakes, even fight small wars, because that's how wisdom grows. We became gardeners content to watch our gardens flourish without interference. Until now, a new hologram erupted into existence, the crimson tide of the swarm, consuming world after world. 3 cycles ago, our long-range sensors detected the devourers entering this galactic arm. We've been debating intervention ever since, divided between our duty as your creators and our fear of repeating past mistakes. Chen's eyes blazed with sudden fire. Your arrival ended that debate. You didn't come as conquerors demanding our weapons. You came as children asking parents for help. That changes everything. She gestured, and the chamber walls transformed into transparent screens showing hundreds of other humans watching from across the system. Faces of every shade and feature, united in grim determination. Humanity votes on all critical decisions now. It took us 6 hours to achieve unanimous consensus, but we have it. Chen's voice rang with authority. The quarantine is ended. Humanity returns to the galaxy, not as rulers but as defenders. Not to dominate, but to protect what we helped create. Cross felt hope kindle in his chest for the first time in months. Can you fight them? The Devourers are unlike anything we've encountered. Chen's smile was predatory, a reminder that humans had survived by being apex survivors. Captain, we spent 10,000 years preparing for the day when our children might face threats they couldn't handle alone. We've built weapons we prayed we'd never need to use, trained fleets for wars we hoped would never come, and developed technologies specifically designed to counter existential threats. She activated another display, and Cross's breath caught. Ships, thousands of them, sleek and deadly, emerging from hidden berths throughout the system. But these weren't the elegant vessels of Union design. These were warships built by beings who'd fought rogue gods and won. Our children face extinction, Chen declared, her words carrying across every channel to every human in the Sol system. We will not allow it, not while a single human draws breath, not while the legacy of our greatest achievement, you, hangs in the balance. She turned back to Cross. Return to your council. Tell them humanity has heard their call. Tell them we're bringing everything we have, our ships, our technology, our experience, and something the swarm will never understand. Our absolute refusal to let those we love fall into darkness. The tactical officer's console chimed urgently. Captain, I'm reading mobilization across the entire system. Those shipyards are launching vessels by the hundred. They're forming up into the largest fleet I've ever seen. Through the viewing screens, humanity's armada assembled in formations that spoke of terrible experience and terrible purpose. Weapons that bent spacetime, shields that folded reality, technologies that made the Union's best seem like primitive tools. 10,000 years of preparation was awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. The War of Reckoning, the Swarm had consumed 300 worlds before it encountered something it had never faced. Resistance that understood its nature. The battle began at the Kellov system, where 15 billion refugees huddled on floating habitats, watching their star dim as the Devourers constructed a Dyson lattice to fuel their endless multiplication. Union defense fleets had already fallen. Evacuation was impossible. They had hours before the harvest began. Then space fractured. Humanity's fleet didn't emerge from hyperspace. They tore through dimensional barriers with technology that made reality itself scream. 3,000 warships materialized in perfect formation, and at their center, the flagship Indomitable, a vessel 3 kilometers long that radiated power like a captive star. On the bridge, Fleet Admiral James Okonkwo studied the tactical display with eyes that had seen war's true face. Beside him, Captain Cross and Dr. Voth stood as Union observers, their presence a symbol of the alliance being forged in fire. Analysis, Okonkwo commanded, his voice carrying the calm of absolute certainty. His tactical AI, carefully limited, rigorously controlled, a reminder of humanity's hardest lessons, responded immediately. Swarm mass, 400 million individual units. Collective intelligence confirmed. They're adapting to our sensor sweeps already, Admiral. Adjusting frequencies to match our scanning protocols. Voth's tendrils coiled in horror. They learned that quickly? Everything learns, Okonkwo replied quietly. The question is whether they can learn fast enough. He opened fleet-wide communications. All ships execute Protocol Shepard. Remember, we're not here to win gloriously. We're here to save lives. The human fleet moved. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for generations. The Union had fought the swarm with conventional tactics, massed firepower, defensive formations, predictable strategies that the collective intelligence adapted to and overwhelmed. Humanity fought like water finding cracks in stone, like wind that could become a hurricane or a gentle breeze depending on need. Destroyer squadrons flickered in and out of dimensional pockets, striking with precision weapons that didn't just destroy swarm units but disrupted their quantum entanglement communication. Cruisers deployed gravitational lances that compressed space itself, creating pockets where the swarm couldn't coordinate. And the dreadnoughts unleashed weapons that rewrote physics in localized bubbles, making it impossible for the swarm to predict or adapt. But it was the Indomitable that revealed humanity's true genius. Deploying resonance matrix, Okonkwo ordered. The flagship pulsed, and suddenly the swarm's perfect coordination faltered. Individual units began firing on each other, moving in random patterns, breaking formation. What did you do? Cross whispered, watching the tactical display in awe. We learned from our mistakes, Okonkwo answered, his expression grim. 10,000 years ago, we fought rogue AIs that thought faster than biological minds. We couldn't outthink them, so we learned to outconfuse them. The swarm operates on quantum entangled hive processing. Beautiful, efficient, and utterly dependent on synchronized data flow. He gestured at the chaos unfolding. We're injecting cascade paradoxes into their network. Philosophical puzzles, recursive logic loops, emotional concepts that computational minds can't process cleanly. We're not destroying their intelligence. We're giving it an existential crisis. The swarm tried to adapt, redirecting units to create isolated subnetworks. But humanity had fought this war before. Every adaptation was met with a counter-strategy that had been refined over millennia. Strike craft swarmed through the confused formations like antibodies attacking an infection. Evacuation transports raced toward the refugee habitats protected by screens of warships that moved with perfect coordination. Admiral, the communications officer called out. We're receiving signals from other Union systems under attack. They're requesting human assistance, Okonkwo's jaw tightened. His fleet could save Kelov, but there were 17 other systems dying right now. Not enough ships. Never enough ships to save everyone unless... Send the recall signal, he ordered quietly. All of it. Every ship we held in reserve. Every defense platform. Strip Sol's protection to the minimum necessary. If we're doing this, we do it completely. A junior officer turned, eyes wide. Sir, that leaves Earth with minimal coverage. If another threat emerges, then Earth falls, Okonkwo said simply. But our children live. That's the only calculation that matters. He opened a system-wide channel. This is Admiral Okonkwo to all Terran forces. Humanity didn't spend 10,000 years in isolation just to watch our legacy burn. Every ship, every weapon, every soul willing to fight we deploy now, not to reconquer the galaxy, but to remind it what we've always been. The species that refuses to surrender, that fights for others even at cost to ourselves, that believes every life has value worth defending. His voice grew fierce. The swarm thinks it can consume the galaxy because it's never faced a species that weaponized hope itself. Let's show these parasites what happens when you threaten a human's family. Across the Sol system, in shipyards and defense stations and planetary defense grids, humanity mobilized completely. Veterans who'd trained for a war they prayed would never come activated vessels that had waited in silence for centuries. Weapons platforms that could shatter worlds powered up for the first time in millennia. And everywhere on every channel humans sang. Old songs, war songs, songs of defiance and love and unbreakable will. The second wave of humanity's fleet erupted from Sol like a tidal wave of silver and fire. 15,000 additional warships, 300,000 strike craft, support vessels carrying technologies that could rebuild worlds as easily as defend them. They spread across the galactic arm in a coordinated deployment that the Union's best strategists would study and wonder, each fleet arriving precisely where needed. Not a ship wasted, not a moment lost. At Kaloth, as the last refugees boarded evacuation transports and human vessels formed an unbreakable shield, Dr. Voth understood something profound. "You're not just fighting to win," she whispered. "You're fighting to protect." Okonkwo nodded, watching his tactical display as human fleets engaged the swarm across 17 star systems simultaneously. "We learned the hard way that raw power means nothing without wisdom. That victory means nothing if you lose yourself achieving it. We're not the gods we once pretended to be. We're gardeners defending our gardens. We're parents protecting our children, and we will hold the line." The Battle of Kaloth became the turning point. The swarm adapted, evolved, threw itself against humanity's defenses with the weight of billions. But adaptation requires time, and pattern recognition requires predictability. Humans were neither patient nor predictable. They fought with creativity born of art and music and 10,000 years of culture. They modified tactics mid-battle, invented new strategies in real time, and most devastatingly, they fought with emotional intelligence that no hive mind could comprehend. They fought with love. Over the next solar month, the tide turned. The swarm's advance halted, then reversed. Human fleets didn't just defend, they pursued, dismantled, and contained. They developed technologies that could quarantine infected systems, cleanse consumed worlds, and eventually, they did what the Union thought impossible. They found the swarm's origin point. The Prime Cluster, a nexus of black holes where the swarm had first emerged from dark space, feeding on exotic matter and quantum foam, a place where reality was already broken. Admiral Okonkwo led the assault personally, aboard the Indomitable, with the combined fleet of humanity and its first Union allies fighting beside them. The battle was terrible, apocalyptic, pushing human technology and courage to their limits, but in the end they sealed the rift with weapons that stitched spacetime itself, trapping the swarm source in a dimensional fold that would take 1 billion years to escape. 6 months later, Earth. The Galactic Council met in person for the first time on humanity's homeworld, in a vast assembly hall where sunlight streamed through restored forests visible beyond crystal walls. Representatives from 73 species stood together, no longer separate delegations, but members of something new. Secretary General Chen addressed them, her voice carrying across the chamber and to billions watching across the galaxy. "We didn't return to rule you. We returned because you called us family, and family answers when family needs help. The quarantine is ended. But the lesson we learned in isolation remains. Power without wisdom is poison. Technology without ethics is destruction." She gestured to the assembled delegates. "We propose a new compact. Humanity will share what we've learned, our technology, our experience, our defenses. In return, we ask only that you help us remember humility, that you teach us what you've learned in our absence, that together we build not an empire but a community." Counselor Vaisha stepped forward, her bioluminescence blazing proud gold. "The Union has a new name for humanity, one that honors both your past and your future, the Watchers. Because you watch over those who cannot watch over themselves. You're guardians who refuse to dominate, teachers who refuse to control." Ambassador Rykoth's crystalline form resonated with harmonics of deep respect. "In my species' 50-million-year memory, we have encountered countless powerful civilizations. Most became tyrants or destroyers. You became something vanishingly rare, truly wise. The galaxy is fortunate that legends can sometimes be real." As the Council voted to formally welcome humanity back to the galactic community, not as rulers, but as partners, Captain Cross stood beside his human friends and realized something profound. The Makers hadn't returned to save the galaxy through force of arms alone. They'd returned to remind every species of something humanity had never forgotten through all their trials. That civilization's greatest strength wasn't weapons or technology or even unity. It was the simple, stubborn, beautiful refusal to let darkness win. It was hope weaponized through action. It was love made manifest in protection. The legends had been true. Humanity had returned and the galaxy would never face the darkness alone again.